Chicago, May the 25th, 1979. Minutes after the crash of an American Airlines DC-10. 273 passengers are dead. The disaster shocked America. Yet 10 days earlier in Cincinnati, David Booth had foreseen it in a dream.
I looked up in the sky and there's an American Airlines jet. I don't know what kind it was. I didn't know planes that well. And the first thing that struck me about it, you know, where I was and looking at it, was that it wasn't making the sound that it should. You know, for being so close to me, it should be louder than it was. It was flying like this, and then all of a sudden, it goes like this, turns over on its back, and then goes straight down on the ground.
He woke up one morning and he was in tears, very nervous, very upset. And I said, well, Dave, what is wrong? And he says, I've had this dream. He says, I don't know where it is or what's going on. He said, but the plane goes up in the air, and he says, then it banks off to the right, goes down nose first, and explodes. And he says, everybody gets killed. And I said, well, Dave, it's just a dream. You know, I said, don't let it upset you. You know, everybody has dreams.
And I thought about it all day, and, you know, what can I do about it? And I went home that night, and normal, everything. Went to sleep. Next day, it happened again. You know, and I woke up, I didn't cry this time. You know, I'm saying, you know, uh-oh, you know, what's going on here? Kept going on every night.
Paul Williams of the Federal Aviation Administration was telephoned at Cincinnati Airport by a distraught David Booth on May the 24th. He remembers that phone call, the day before the crash.
In his dream, what he reported to me was that the aircraft suddenly turned sharply to the right and then dived into the ground. And he described in great detail the explosion that he saw, and every time he described that, he became quite distraught because it was almost as if he was seeing death.
The next night, David Booth saw this film of the air crash on the television news.
The first thing that came on was the air crash in Chicago. You know, I'm looking at it, and I lost it then. You know, I'm looking at this thing, you know, this is what I've been dreaming about. You know, the whole thing.
And I looked at Dave, and it was just like he turned white as a ghost. He was, you know, it was almost like in shock.
Pictures snatched by an amateur photographer show how the plane crashed. It had lost an engine and rolled over before hitting the ground and exploding. When he learned the facts, Paul Williams realized that David Booth's dream was uncannily accurate.
The coincidences between what David Booth told me on May 24th and what actually happened on May 25th were the airline was exactly correct, the type of aircraft was as he described, a large aircraft with an engine on the tail, which a DC-10 is. The aircraft was not making the right sound, and he described that to me on May 24th. Perhaps the most remarkable coincidence of the whole thing was the similarities of the maneuver that the plane made. It's a very unusual maneuver for a plane to make before crashing. Most of them crash with wings horizontal. They run into some obstruction, a mid-air collision, but the maneuver that David described was very unusual. As a matter of fact, it's the only one I've ever heard of a plane that size.
Does Williams believe David Booth had a vision of the future?
All I can say is I don't know. If David told me the plane was going to, a certain plane was going to crash, I certainly wouldn't get on the plane.